Helen Alcala, and I am your energetic MC for today. I'm also here with my co-MC, Alish.
What's poppin', everyone? I'm Alish from Grade 6 Curie, and I'll be your co-MC for today.
How are you feeling today, Alish?
I'm doing great today, Alexia. Thanks for asking. How about you?
I am very excited for today's event because we will be meeting a botanist virtually. Now to our honorable guest speakers, teachers, and fellow students, a pleasant morning.
Everyone, please join us for an opening prayer to be led by Yuri Fagir Marquita.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin the session. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of this institution. Amen.
Once again, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome everyone to the Newfield STEM School of Davao first virtual event for this school year entitled An Hour with a Botanist.
It is indeed an exciting day for us because we are very lucky to have the chance to meet, listen, and chat with the botanist. Now let us all listen to our school directress, Ma'am Helen Ongo, for the opening remarks.
Okay, so good morning once again, fielders. I hope that you are as excited as I am in this webinar organized by our science teachers, as a culminating activity of our topic about plants this quarter. So I am filled with gratitude for this type of learning experience because I think it's going to be a normal activity for us now that we are into online learning modality. So thank you for not missing out on this one that is meant to give you a deeper understanding of how plants reproduce, whether they are flowering plants or non-flowering plants, from no other than Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña, who has a postgraduate degree in botany. So thank you, Dr. Roy, for taking out taking time out to join us today. So in addition, your social and communication skills will also be put to test as you are given the responsibility by your teachers not only to facilitate the program flow. So thanks to our MCs, our ates, at Alexia and Alish, and to, of course, observe our core values of respect and collaboration. So without any further ado, I would like to say welcome everyone and happy learning.
Thank you, Ma'am Helen. Let us all listen to Teacher JR as he will be introducing our guest speaker for today.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for that, Alexia. Okay, so once again, good morning, Newfielders. Okay, before I introduce our guest speaker, allow me to share a quote from Benjamin F. Fairless. So what is the recipe of a successful achievement? So to my mind, there are just 4 essential ingredients. First, choose a career you love. Second, give it the best there is in you. Third, seize your opportunities. And the 4th one, be a member of the team. Indeed, so our guest speaker for today is someone who gave his best in everything he does, someone who loves the career he chose, and sees the opportunities there is. He is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Biology, major in Ecology at the University of Southern Mindanao, Cabaca, North Cotabato, year 2011. He got his master's degree in Botany at University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Laguna, in the year 2015. Recently, got his doctor's degree in Botany at University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Laguna, year 2020. And currently, he is the assistant professor second at the University of Southern Mindanao, College of Arts and Sciences, and Department of Biological Sciences. Let's welcome him with a round of applause, Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña. A round of applause, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Teacher JR, for the warm welcome, and also Mom Helen for the warm welcome also. So good morning, everyone. I hope we are all okay today, or we are all in good condition. So this is the second time I was invited. Sorry, nakamute. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for Teacher JR for warm welcome, and also Mom Helen. Um, this is the second time I will be giving a lecture or be involved in this activity for the new fielders. Okay, so currently, I'm in the office right now, so I need to report since recently I was assigned as the department chair of our department, so I need to be in the office. Okay, so Mom Helen told me that you have already discussed, or some of you already discussed sexual reproduction of plants, and I assume that you have already a good background. However, there are still students who haven't discussed this particular topic. So I will give you a very short or summarized form on how do plants reproduce. Okay, so what are the different agents of plant reproduction? Particularly, we are looking onto the sexual reproduction of plants. So, with your permission, let me share to you uh, my screen for my presentation. Okay, may I ask if my screen is reflected on your screen? Okay. Okay. So sexual reproduction, both of flowering and non-flowering plants. So what are the mechanisms uh, on how do these types of plants reproduce? Okay, so in this case, meron tayo or we have flowering and we have non-flowering plants. Okay, so let me um, give you an idea what are flowering and non-flowering plants. For the higher order plants, we have flowering, which means they bear flowers. Okay, so I assume that you have the idea which plants are bearing flowers, and you have also non-flowering plants, or technically termed as the gymnosperms. So those plants that exhibit flowers, they are called angiosperms. And for non-flowering plants, they are called gymnosperms. Okay, so these are higher plants. Okay, so for flowering plants, okay, so you have here a typical flower. So in a typical flower, there are two different reproductive parts. You have the pistil and you have the um, the male reproductive part here. So you have the female and you have the male part. Okay, so the male part contains what we so called the pollen. Okay, so these are the male reproductive or structure in flowering plants or in plants itself, containing the reproductive cell. So when the pollen mature onto the this particular structure, then it will be dispersed, okay, by any agent. Okay, later I'll discuss to you what are the agents, how these this pollen disperse, and of course, when this particular pollen attaches to or received by the pistil, it will the term here is it will germinate. Okay, so there is germination. So it will germinate and then it will form what we so called the tube, okay, or the pollen tube. So it makes a pathway, okay, going onto the what we so called the ovule. Okay, the ovule contains the is part of the female reproductive structure of the flower, wherein it will become the seed. So the ovule contains the egg cell, which will be fertilized by the sperm nuclei that is coming from the what? The pollen. Okay? And then it will fertilize the egg here in the ovule, and the ovule will actually form and develop into a seed. Okay? So the ovule becomes the seed. You will be asking, what is this particular structure? So this structure which contains the ovule is the ovary. The ovary, when that particular structure matures, it will become the fruit. So you will notice if you are eating a particular fruit, okay, inside of it, you have the seeds. Okay, so those seeds are already fertilized. Okay, so there are instances when you are planting, you are using seed as a planting material. It is because the seed, after fertilization, it contains the embryo. The embryo now inside the seed, just like this one, will germinate and will form into another plant. So that is for flowering. Remember, we have flowers. How about for non-flowering? Okay, those are technically termed as the gymnosperms. Okay, so for non-flowering, best example or common example that you can observe outside are the pine trees. Have you observed pine trees? Or have you seen a pine tree? Okay, so I hope you have seen a pine tree. In a pine tree, it's not it's not termed as flower. Okay, the pine trees, their reproductive structure, hindi it's not being called as flower. It is called as cones. Okay, they have separate cones for male and they have a separate cones for female. So they have the male cone and they have the female cone. So the male cone, the same with flowering plants, they contain also pollen. Okay? So pollen, they have the same term, the pollen which fertilizes the egg, which is found on the female cone. Okay? And then during dispersion, it will go into the female cone and then it will fertilize. Still, they have the same term. You have the ovule, and the ovule will become into a mature seed. Okay? What's the difference? In terms of the maturation of the seed for non-flowering plants is not enclosed in a particular structure. As compared to flowering plants, they are inside the fruit. But in the non-flowering plants, they are just outside. No fruit, no ovary that covers the seed. Okay, that's why it is being called as gymnosperm. Okay, so you might be, you can actually, search for the gymnosperm or the origin of the term. It is actually termed as gymno, which means naked. So the seed, it's not enclosed in a fruit. Okay, that's the difference between angiosperm. So the seed, as it mature, it can actually be dispersed, and having the right environmental condition, it can germinate to another plant. Okay, so that is the difference between flowering and non-flowering. Okay, so if you have question later, you can ask me for clarification. So how can this be possible? How dispersion? How can dispersion of pollen can be possible in plants? How can it transfer from the male structure to the female structure for fertilization? Okay, in the formation of seed. We have a term called, I know you are familiar with this. You have pollination. Okay? So pollination is the transfer of one pollen or pollen from one flower to another. Okay? But pollination, there are different drivers or there are different means how do plants pollinate. First, you have the insects, the very common, they are termed as pollinators. Okay? So you have insect pollinators or even other animals can be pollinators. So we are aware, or some of you are aware that the target of the pollinators, same as insects, is to get nectar from the flower. Okay? There are sugar content inside the flower. So as it visits the flower for nectar, okay, some of the pollen in the male structure of the flower stick into the body of the insects. Okay? So it is not the pollen that is targeted by the insect but the nectar. It's just an accidental transfer. So the pollen stick into the insect's body, and as it transfer to another flower, okay, it brings with them the pollen from other flower. So that is the work of the pollinators. However, the sad thing here is that not all plants have pollinators. Okay, so not all plants have been visited by pollinators for nectar. Other means of pollination, you have wind. Okay, for example, the pines, the pine trees. Pine trees do not have pollinators. They just pollinate through the wind. Okay, so most of the time, actually, the structure is very is designed. The structure or the location of the male and the female cones is very are designed for pollination. Most of the male cone are situated on top or the tip of the branches, and the female cone are situated at the base of the branch. So when there is a wind, so the male cone will move, okay, and then some of its pollen will be dispersed, and it goes onto the base of the branch, going to the location of the female cone. So that is how they uh, disperse pollen. And you all know that there are also plants living in water, okay, or inhabiting in water. So most likely, their pollination is through the movement of the water. For example, I know that you are aware, or you know seagrasses. Okay, seagrasses are plants in water. Okay, so the pollination or the uh, transfer of pollen from one seagrass to another is through the movement of the water. So the flowers of the seagrasses are on the surface, and they can actually disperse pollen into the water, and as the water moves, okay, it will disperse the pollen which will received by the female part of this particular plant, and then pollination or even fertilization will happen. So that is how, or these are the mechanism how pollen transfer is possible. Okay, so that is actually the whole presentation. So I hope you get something of it. Thank you very much. So if you have questions, you can ask me.
Okay. Thank you very much for an interesting and knowledgeable presentation, Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña. Now, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask our beloved guest speaker, Dr. Florence. But before that, Alish will state our reminders for our Q&A portion.
Here are the reminders for our Q&A. Please do keep your mic off all the time and never turn it on if not told so.
This is because Teacher JR will just be reading the questions you gave. And if we still have remaining time, please do raise your hand off for permission to speak if you still have questions.
Okay, so good morning everyone. So these are questions given by the grade 6 and grade 7 new fielders. Okay, so I will read the first question. Doc Roy. So I will read the first question from Jamie Matthew Lozano, grade 6 Curie. So can we classify plant just by looking at it? That is the question from Jamie Matthew Lozano from the grade 6 Curie. Okay.
That's a very interesting question. It's first of all, if you are not familiar with the type of plant that you are seeing, it's very difficult to say whether it is flowering or non-flowering when you cannot see the flowers. Okay, So technically, if you see the plant bearing flowers, most probably it is a flowering plant. That if they don't bear flowers and they bear cones, okay, just like what I've said, for the pines, then they are considered non-flowering plants. But you can actually determine whether it is flowering and non-flowering when the reproductive parts are already in there. Okay, so if you're not familiar, okay, you may ask somebody if they bear flowers or they don't bear flowers.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Florence. So let's proceed now with the question number 2 from Angela Pagaran, grade 6 Curie. So, what is the importance of spore in our environment? Since we discussed about the gymnosperm, and one of that is another example of a gymnosperm is spore bearing. So, this is the question of Angela Pagaran from grade 6 Curie. Okay, Dr. Roy?
Okay, so the spores is also associated to gymnosperms. So there are different references that actually considered pollen as spores, or actually the maturation of spores or the microspores will definitely form the pollen. So when you try to when you try to search for its function in the environment, most probably that is the important is for sexual reproduction, for reproduction of its own species. Okay, for the reproduction of that particular species, for them not to be extinct. Okay, so if they don't have the capability to produce the spores, then they cannot undergo sexual reproduction. But there's another way. If there are no spores, you have asexual reproduction. Okay, so but spores are very important for sexual reproduction of the species, so that it will not be extinct, okay, or gone in the in the environment or in their habitat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Doc Lawrence. So, shall we proceed now with the question number 3 by Olpiano Bedea from grade 7 Alcala. So, okay. It is possible for a plant to, to perform both sexual and asexual reproduction. Okay, that's the question
Okay.
from Olpiano. Yes,
Okay, thank you
Dr.
very
Lawrence.
much for another interesting question. Plants, there are two types of reproduction in plants. You have sexual and asexual. Okay, so plants can reproduce through asexual reproduction. So there are certain parts of the plant, just like of the roots, the stem, even the leaves can reproduce another individual. No, yeah. So it is possible. Yeah, to for plants to undergo asexual reproduction.
Okay. So, thank you for that, Doc Lawrence. How about from Alexander Kendrick from grade 7 Alcala? So, what is the smallest gymnosperm? I think that is what what is the smallest gymnosperm?
The
Opo.
smallest gymnosperm, as far as I based on size, as far as I can, based on my knowledge, you have the falcatifolium. I guess the smallest gymnosperm present. I just know in the Philippines, the smallest gymnosperm we have is the falcatifolium. It's just a small shrub. Okay, it is because most of the gymnosperms are situated in higher elevated areas or in higher mountains. Okay, so that particular location actually inhibits their growth and development. So most of them in that area have stunted growth or small size. But in other countries, I am not sure of which specific gymnosperm is the smallest.
Thank you for that, Doc Lawrence. So I think this is the last question from Lanaya Kael Casinio from grade 7 Alcala. Okay. So what is the most dangerous plant you have encountered, Doc Roy? According
Okay.
to
Okay.
Lanaya.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been into the field, particularly in forests areas. So we have a particular plant that we usually check. It is because it is it can cause irritation. Okay, we have this dendrocnide species, or commonly known as lipa. Okay, this is very irritating to the skin, up to the point it is because the leaves contain trichomes, and these trichomes causes irritation to the skin, specifically for humans. Um, yeah. So because of the trichomes, okay, when it touches any part of your body, it causes irritation. And the worst thing that will happen to you is you will have a high body temperature, or to be considered as fever. Okay, that's yeah. I have tried also that one in the field. Yeah. So you have the dendrocnide species, or the lipa.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc Roy. So I think I mislooked the question of Christine and Alexa, Ayesha. So may I add some another two questions, Doc Roy, before I end my question and
Yes po,
give to
sure
Miss
po.
Dayan? Okay.
Yes po.
So from Christina Baluna, grade 7, Alcala. So what was the most interesting plant you have discovered, Dr. Roy?
Uh, I haven't discovered it, but I encountered it, no. Um, I don't know if you are familiar with uh, Laraflesia. Okay, it is the largest flowering plant I don't know if in the whole world or in the Philippines. So it is very interesting because you can just see the flower, but you cannot see its stem, you cannot see its leaves, just the flower. It is because this particular plant species is considered parasitic. So it blooms within the body of a host plant. Okay, and then since it is a parasite, it do not bear stem nor bear leaves. It will just bloom into a flower from its host plant. So we have Rafflesia.
Okay, that's all, Dr. Roy. So I will proceed now with the last. That is, I think this is the last question from the grade 7 and the grade 6. The question from Ayesha Tan from the grade 7 Alcala. So what is the smallest angiosperm? So what is the smallest angiosperm?
The smallest angiosperm that I know is we have here, especially it is actually considered an aquatic plant. You have the Lemma pelea. Okay, you have the Lemma pelea. Its common name is the duckweed. So it is commonly seen in the ponds. Ayan. So very minute plant, the Lemma pelea.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roy. I think that is was all for the grade 6 and for the grade 7. And I think Teacher Diane prepared some question from the grade 4 and the grade 5. Okay, may I call on Teacher Diane?
Okay, thank you so much, Sir JR. That's a lot of questions, Sir JR, from grade 6 and 7. Okay, good morning once again, Dr. Florence, and to everyone. Okay, I have two questions only, Sir Florence. Okay, my first question given by the grade 5 and grade 4 students. Their first question would be this. How can a botanist contribute in preventing plants to be endangered? This is coming from Anika Victoria Kabagan.
Okay, so that's a very interesting question po, ano. And that student is very aware of the endangered plant species we have here in the Philippines. So, as botanists, we usually do field works, and these field works, we encounter a lot of species, and we encounter especially the endangered and threatened species. So, what we do when we encounter this particular species, we make a report, okay? We make a scientific report that this particular endangered and threatened species is present in that particular area we where we conducted our assessment, and then that will become a basis of protecting that particular area, since that houses or that is a habitat for these endangered plant species. So we do recommendations for conservation.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Dr. Florence. Okay, so here is my second question from Hyacinth Ngausi of grade 5 student. Do plant eat? How do it get nutrients? What are the nutrients essential for plants growth?
Okay, so that's a multiple questions. So there are plants which are considered carnivorous. Okay, are you familiar with the sun juice, the pitcher plant? Okay, so these are considered carnivorous. It is because you have also I forgot the other plant. You have the Venus flytrap. Okay, the one that when a fly touches its leaves, it closes. Okay, that's the Venus flytrap. So these are considered carnivorous. So aside from the roots that they have, acquiring nutrients from the soil where they are planted or where they grow, they have also other means of acquiring nutrition from the insects that they trap in their particular structures. You have the sundew, the Venus flytrap, and the pitcher plant. So most of the nutrients, or with a common plant, for example, aside from those that I have mentioned, most common plant acquire nutrients from the soil, okay? Or technically, sinasabi namin na um, they absorb nutrients from their substrate, okay? Substrate, it is because not all plants are growing into the soil. Some are attached to another plant and some are attached to concrete walls. Okay, so this general medium of attachment is called the substrate. So most of the nutrients are from the substrate that they absorb because of the presence of their roots. The common nutrients, the macro elements that is needed by the plant, you have the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and you have the potassium. So other elements are considered as micro nutrients for the plants. We have zinc, molybdenum, sulfur, and other elements also.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Florence. Okay.
Thank you
So,
po.
Alexa,
Welcome.
Alexa.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that, Teacher Diane. So, since we still have time, so if you have question, just raise your hand and wait until I call your name. Are we clear with that, new fielders? Okay. Since we still have a time, so just raise your hand. If you have question, just raise your hand and wait until I call your name. Okay? Okay, is that you raising hand, Julie? From the grade 5, Hermosa? Okay, you can unmute yourself, Julie.
Are seeds the only way flowering plants have of making new plants?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. That is one type of or one way of making a new individual plant, the seeds. But as what I have said, it is another way is asexual reproduction. Okay, so you can cut the stem, okay, and replant it, so that's asexual reproduction. So if you cut the stem and you plant it and it grows into another individual, that's another way, aside from the seed, of propagating or forming new individual plants. So aside from the stem, there are also plants that can grow through the leaves or through the roots.
Okay. So okay, thank you for that, Dr. Florence. So I think this is the last question. Okay, how about Gian? You have question, Gian?
Uh, what is your most challenging experience as a botanist?
Thank you, Gian, for that question. The most challenging um, part of being a botanist, I do field work, Gian, I do field works, and there's a lot of people that I encounter in the field. So with that different people, they have varying behavior towards our work as a botanist. So one of the challenge for us is to deal with that different behaviors of the people that we encounter in the field. I think that's, aside from the technical part of being a botanist, the social part of the people, or the social part of it, is very challenging also for us in the field, doing field work.
So thank you. It's okay, Doc Florence. So I will okay, allow one student from
Okay
the
lang
grade.
po. Ay,
Okay.
may time pa po ba tayo, sir? Or do you
Yes
have
po.
still time?
For last question
I
po.
can entertain.
Okay. For the last question po, I think from Yuri, grade set grade 5, Yuri, from grade 5. Okay. Yuri, you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
How do flowers get so big without dying?
Okay. Um, Flower develop, okay? It developed from a shoot, or floral shoot, or floral bud, into its mature form. But different plants do have different flower sizes, okay? It will not very long to bear flowers, okay, for them to bear flowers. So there is a certain period called the maturity period, wherein after they are fertilized, or after they have undergo fertilization, receive a pollen from another flower, and then being fertilized, they will now um, get off of, for example, their petals, their other structure. It is because they will develop into a fruit already upon maturation. So it's not very long for the flowers to exist in a particular plant. It is because they need also to produce the fruit and for the dispersion of the seeds.
Okay. So another question, if it's okay, Doc Florence.
Yes,
Okay. How
teacher
about
JR, it's
okay,
okay.
thank you for that, Doc Florence. How about Jayla? Jayla, from what grade are you, Jayla? Can you unmute yourself?
From
Yes,
grade
Jayla.
4 student.
Okay, from grade 4. Yes, Jayla. You can ask Doc Florence about your question. Thank you.
How tall can the flower Titanarum grow, and where can it be found?
That's an interesting question again, Um, there are different time where a particular flower of a particular individual time bloom. Okay, there is a particular season. Okay, so if that particular season, or during that particular season, they bear flowers, it is because that is the season where they bear flowers. Okay, and in terms of the location of the flower, most it varies also, because some of the flowers are in the tip of the branches, some are attached within the branches, or some are within the base of the branches. Okay, so I don't know if you have observed the plant kamyas. Have you seen a kamyas plant, or kamyas? Yeah. Okay, so if you try to check its fruit, it is it is attached to the main stem. So you can actually say that the flower is attached to the main stem. So there are also other that attach at the tip of the branches. Have you seen a mango fruit attached to its plant? Yeah, yes. So you can actually say that the flowers are located at the tip of the branches. So that differs from one species or one individual plant type to another.
Okay, I think that was the last question. So, Alish?
Thank you for sharing your precious time for this day, Dr. Florence. We are very honored to have you as our guest speaker today. I hope you also enjoyed chatting with us.
Thank you, Teacher JR and Alish and Dr. Florence. For our closing remarks, may we call on Teacher Yan?
Okay, once again, good morning, new fielders. Good morning, Dr. Florence Roy. Okay, on behalf of the new fielders, the admin, the science teachers, and Ma'am Helen, our school directress, allow me to say thank you to Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña for a very informative, empowering, and educational 1 hour with you. It is indeed very true that in times where small instructor-led classrooms tend to be the exception, electronic learning solutions can offer more collaboration and interaction with experts and peers. Thank you is an understatement of how grateful we are as the Newfield STEM School of Davao for giving us your time and knowledge during the session. I would also like to say thank you to our school directress, Ma'am Helen Perpetua J. Ongo, for giving our dear Newfielders this one-of-a-kind opportunity to meet and greet a botanist. This is a great opportunity for them to see, explore, and apply what they learn in school to real life, which the school is aiming for. And also to my co-teachers, Teacher JR and Teacher Elaine, this session will not be possible without your help on how we can give the best experience to our students, especially in the new normal setting. New fielders, I am beyond grateful for giving your time and showing your excitement during the session with Dr. Roy. Before we say goodbye to Dr. Roy, allow me to share a quote by Debbie Boone. Dreams are the seeds of change. Nothing ever grows without a seed, and nothing ever changes without a dream. So keep on dreaming, dear new fielders. Once again, Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Teacher Yan. Lastly, may we call on Shantea Corrales from Grade 7 Alcala for the words of gratitude?
A warm and graceful good morning to all my fellow Newfielders, teachers, and Ma'am Helen. It gives me a wonderful pleasure to deliver this message. I would like to thank all of you for being here, and especially to our special guest, Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña. We really enjoyed this opportunity being with you and letting our minds filled up with knowledge. Thank you for answering our questions. Thank you for teaching us more about plants. Also, thank you, Ma'am Helen, for letting us meet a botanist today. We will not forget this event. It was a pleasure coming here. To all of you, once again, I thank one and all present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shantea, and to all our fellow Newfielders this morning. I'm hoping that we have gained as much as input as possible and have been inspired by our guest speaker, Dr. Florence Roy Salvaña. Have a great day ahead, Newfielders!